Hey folks, Lindsey Huddleston back in the building. SPS, another SPS mental health moment. Took a hiatus, took a break. Was supposed to be 2 weeks, turned into 1 month and a week to finish up the book, The SPSEdge. You see it right here, Guide to Mental Toughness in Sports and Life post-COVID-19. But what better way to come back to you? What better way to get back out here in these streets? What better way to talk about how we're going to get our minds ready than talk to my guy, Mr. DeShaun Tate, NCAA reporter, NCAA insider, formerly with 92.9 in Atlanta, but he happens to be back here in Michigan. He decided to come back home for a little while to catch up and hang out. Still giving an introduction. I've been able to know this brother for a brief amount of time compared to many people I know, but it's been a kindred spirit. We talk all the time, chop it up all the time, not just about sports, but how we moving out here. But DeShaun, I'm really happy to have you out here on Tate's, I'm about to say Tate's Take, which is your podcast. Happy to have you out here on the SPS Mental Health Moment. How you doing, man?
It's all good. You just speaking the future into existence, putting it out there in the atmosphere, which is always a good thing. And just being ahead of the curve, man. And so we definitely glad to get you on to the Tate's Take podcast and just, rap a little bit. But I'm doing good, man. Thanks for asking. Just in a really good place, that's what it's really all about. I know everybody can't say that, but hopefully everybody get to a point where they can. But nonetheless, it's all about growth, and probably more importantly, just working on some of the things like what we're here talking about. Being better mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, all those things. And I'm blessed to be able to wake up this morning and be a part of this with you.
That's great, man. I appreciate it. I think back, social media allows you to kind of get introduced to people, get familiar with people over time. But I think we actually met, of all places, we met Michigan State versus Duke. Was that the big Duke game when we met?
Thanks for the reminder, bro. I was trying to actually expunge that from my memory.
Oh, man. Hey, understood. I remember that was a standing room only event. And we got to shout out the man himself, Mr. Jack Ebling, who's been a cog in this. And shout out to your cousin, my guy, Keith Tate, author and coach as well. But no, we were at that standing room only situation at the Duke game. Got to see that experience, whatever. Well, now, so I bring that up to say, my experience in collegiate sports has been relatively new. You've been out here beating the pavement for a long time, man, getting the scoop on things, working really hard. I look at your recent
pop-up. Is it showing with bags under my eyes that I've been doing?
I couldn't tell, man. I thought you powdered it out a little bit. But you've been out here doing it for a minute, man. Talk about, one, your passion for that and what you've been doing. And two, I guess, to educate people on what it really takes, man, to really be out here and build up a brand in this type of industry. So I'll let you roll with that.
Man, the passion is something that's just so deep, and so deep to the point where you got to forgive me, you and the viewers, if I shed a tear every now and then trying to explain it, because it has just really been that passionate for me. Excuse me. And just, it all comes back here, to Michigan, to Lansing, Michigan, my roots, and the game that I fell in love with, man, since I was 10 years old, playing in a Gus Macker, where really, and I'll be honest about it, because I got a good feeling that Keith is going to see it, so he want to make sure I'm not lying. But, Keith was always the more dominant, that basketball player in the family. And, they needed an extra player for the 3-on-3 to have one sub to be able to give somebody a break. And I wasn't coming out there, crazy offense or nothing, but I was on the defensive side. That's the Tom Izzo way. And I just kind of fell in love with Michigan State, fell in love with the program, and just kind of been following them ever since. And that's really where my passion for basketball itself really started. But I've always been that person, I think, where, I've always kind of, I've never played it as good as I am, being able to follow it and learn the actual game and be able to break down the game. I've always been more of that type of person and just falling in love with it. And so that's ultimately kind of where it started. There's so many other things that I could say in regards to it, just the passion. As far as from a broadcasting standpoint, I just always thought that it would be something that's really cool to do, and I would sit back and listen to guys up on the set and doing TV and radio, and I always thought about how cool that would be. Now here we are talking about, someone that's so young and basically essentially in like not a studio apartment, but like 1-2 bedroom apartment where my mom was staying at the time, and just having the aspirations and goals to kind of follow along that same way. And some guys' suits wasn't in season all the time, mine included in some cases. Or,
when are they ever in season, man, when you out here doing it? Nobody's in season. Everybody trying to get it.
Exactly. Posture wasn't right. And I was one of those people. I was never perfect, but I always critique other people to prepare myself for when I get to that stage. So I just kind of fell in love with that part of it as well, because I've always followed it, it took me to get to a point where probably about, I'm glad we talking about mental health because this played a really big part of it.
Please.
Approaching, what is today, the 6th? So probably within the next one day less than a month from now, August 5th, which is 3 days after my 24th birthday, I ended up losing a daughter. And so we're working up on like about 12 years now at this point. But I say all that to say that, I was just really in a bad place mentally, contemplated suicide among so many other things. And some of the people that know me so well, this is probably news to them when they watch it. But, I just decided to just put everything, all my chips on the table, and go all in on what I do. I had opportunities at 9-to-5 jobs with really good, benefits and all this other stuff, and just really decided that I didn't want to go that route. And then I wanted to get into radio/TV broadcast. So, I decided to do that. And just a little part about my story, and I apologize if I get a little long-winded. But
no, brother, please, go on.
It was at a point where I walked in up to a buddy of mine named Scott Greenhut told me about a radio station, 92.9 The Game over in Atlanta, and told me that he thought I would be really good for something like that. So I just, I didn't have the resume, you know what I mean? I didn't. I was probably up against 300 people that had better resumes than I did, and I really didn't have very much on mine besides a small AM station that I'm thankful for that opportunity as well. Where I say all that to say, long story longer, that, I banged on the door every day. I went up there every single day. I was there. I was calling. Sometimes I think they only gave me the job so that I can leave them folks alone and stop bringing their phone off the hook. So it got to that point. I was just in a really rough spot. I was getting ready to leave Atlanta and go to Houston. And, I got offered a job opportunity. I told them I'd be the first one there. I'll be the last one to leave. If you need me to go change the toilet paper in the bathrooms, I'll do it. If you need me to bring coffee to the guys in the morning, I'm more than open to do that. I got the availability with no problem. I wasn't offered very much. I was told that I would get probably about 8 hours a week. And obviously you can't make no money on that, but I would have that CBS stamp on my resume, and I needed that. So I took it. And then from there, just started growing within. So it became their basketball guy. I'm like, who's covering basketball? They're like, you are. I'm like, since when? They're like, as of today. And I'm like, is this a joke? You know what I'm saying? It just happened like that. So God is definitely really good. That's essentially how I got my start. I'm not sure I would tell anybody to mimic that and go that same direction, but it's just really all about being hungry. I don't have the educational background for it or any of that other type of stuff that people try and sell you on that you need to be successful. Not so much worried about the things that I don't have, but worry about the things that I do have. However, try to work towards the things that I don't have as well.
Brother. Oh, man. I'm over here misty-eyed right now, man. First of all, sorry for your loss. I know you hear that, but I have to say it. Having a daughter, man, 8-year-old, that just tugged at my heart. But, so many things you said that I want to be able to go back on. But, just even the final comment you made, you don't know if you would give anyone that advice. But you said something early on. You said you put all your chips on the table. You said you put it all out there. And the words that you were using, you were somebody who was committed to doing that. And that's probably why you got the job outside of 300 people, because they look past those sometimes superficial things like the names, the titles, and it was that you said, I'll be the first to be here, the last to leave, and I'll change the toilet paper. What put those words into your heart that were able to come out of your mouth to say that?
I just don't know another way. I'm from this little small town of Lansing, Michigan, and just hungry and was tired. I tell people all the time, it's one thing to be sick and tired, but to be sick and tired of being sick and tired is something totally different.
Let's stay there for a minute. Stay there for a minute, because I heard it. It's one thing to be sick and tired, DeShaun Tate says, but it's another thing to be sick and tired of sick and tired. You said you were tired with the experience of being sick and tired. You were done with all that. Wow.
Yeah. Just,
Okay.
you know, we all go through so many different things in our lives and things that hold us back, or not really knowing that a lot of times, you know, we are holding ourselves back. Plus, on top of that, there's no room to do that because being a young Black man, a lot of times, you know, you don't get those opportunities. You're already held back from birth in a lot of cases. And I know we're kind of going through some of those things and right now in the world, but, you know, I say all that to say that I just didn't want to allow any excuses for myself. I just wanted to go full in, 2 feet, just jump right in and see what can happen of it. If you fail, you fail. You do, you don't, you don't. But I'm from this place where people grind harder than anybody else. You know, I'm from a place, and I know some people may not necessarily always agree with that, but I tell people all the time when they talk about people that come from this place, hey, I'm still from this place. I may not have been here for 15 years, right, but I'm still from this place. So I know what people have from here. They have that. It's just everybody tap in differently and at different times. So from that standpoint, you know, I really wanted something better for myself. I wanted an opportunity for my mama to be able to turn on the television and see her son on there, but not because he was robbing, stealing, killing, or any of that type of stuff. I just wanted her to be really proud of the baby boy, man. So I just try and one foot in front of the other every day, make her and my daughter proud.
And speaking of timing, you're going to be on Jack Evelyn's press pass this coming week, you know, so she will be able to turn on the TV from the comfort of home and see that. What role did fear play in your journey, DeShaun?
It didn't, because I didn't have the time to really think about how fearful I was. You know, it was one of those things where once you start thinking about the different ways that you can fail is the first step towards failing. To me, you know, it's risk versus reward.
Start thinking about the different ways you can fail is the first step towards failure. Mike, can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, that's just kind of the way I see it. You know, it's very similar to me. I was watching The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary, some weeks ago, probably about a month, 2 months ago. One of the things that he said was, "Why would I take a shot thinking that I'm gonna miss?" You know, or it was something along those lines. So I'm not even thinking about missing those shots. I'm not even thinking about failing. Every single time has to be thinking about how you're going to be successful. And that's not always going to be easy, especially when you go through your trials and your tribulations in life. But I say all that to say that, you know, that's really ultimately where that comes from. There is no room for failure. Failure is not
an option. When you going up against some statistical numbers that was against you, 300 plus people, you felt you didn't have the resume, you felt you didn't have the education, you didn't have the plugs, but yet and still you didn't think about fear. I mean, you talked about where you were from and how that played a role, but I just really want to kind of hone in on that a little bit, because it seemed like the odds were against you in so many ways, but something was pushing you to get through that.
It did. It really didn't matter who was up against me, because, you know, when I'm coming up in my youth, and I know exactly, you know, I sat in that little 2-bedroom apartment that was essentially underground, so kind of like a terrace level or whatever you want to call it, you know, a basement essentially. You know, I was there doing that. I was the one that was up day and night when everybody else is sleeping. 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm up with my head inside of that encyclopedia. I'm up paying attention to these programs and these different institutions and who the top ranked players are, how they're going to fit into these systems to where they committed to, going from high school level to college basketball, and then, you know, from there to the next level to the NBA, and just studying, doing my research. But I had to make a lot of sacrifices. You know, there was people that wanted to go do so many other things, and not even bad things. It ain't even just about drugs and guns and everything else, just about just regular stuff, just going to hang out, going to the mall, going roller skating. Now, I'm not saying that my life didn't consist of that at all, but as I got closer to realizing exactly what I wanted to do, and realizing that I was going to be successful. It was never a question as to whether I was going to be successful. It was just a question as to when. And I just got to a point where I had to put that, you know, on God's lap. And then another part of that was, you know, even as I got a little bit more established within my career, I started realizing that in some cases I wanted to I wanted to be successful for the wrong reasons.
Okay.
I don't care. It's not about being rich, or it's not about this and that, but I grew up in a situation where while I did know my dad and some of my family, it was looked down upon to step out there and take this kind of risk instead of getting a 9 to 5. My dad did 30 years at Chrysler plant, so he doesn't understand the being willing to, work somewhere for and them just promising you that you're going to get, 8 hours a week, not a day, a week, with no benefits and so forth. But I wanted to prove him wrong. And so I became kind of at a standstill to an extent within my career, because I was trying to be successful to prove him wrong and let it be known that it can be done. And while that is a good thing, it's also a bad thing because it was holding me back because I was doing it for the wrong reasons. And I always had the passion. I always had the love. It's something I still wanted to do anyway, but I had to change my mindset, and I had to gear my focus more towards honing in on my craft and doing it for the right reasons, and not so much to make somebody else look bad. So that's just a huge part of it. Once I put 2 and 2 together, 2 plus 2 ain't 22, brother.
No, it's not. It's not.
2 and 2 is 4. 2 and 2 is 4. So, I say all that because it just became much more simple. And once I put that, this little piece with this ingredient, and you mix them together, the combination, there was no room for fear at that point. It was just go all in, and what's the worst that can happen? Yeah. That you fail. And fail is just one person's opinion. So
that's a good point. Wow, again, so many things. And that, it's funny, I was talking to a really close friend of mine, even my mom too. We're impacted by our childhood. Our childhood kind of molds and makes us who we are. You talk about having to reconcile what reasons you were doing something for. Also talk about, social relationships and the people around you, and how that can either motivate you to do more or kind of sometimes blow the candle out on your dreams. Talk about what it's like for the people who are listening, who probably have to break away from some of the negativity and toxicity around them to reach their dreams and goals.
Well, it's not going to be easy. If it was easy, anybody can do it. And I know that we all face different challenges. We all got weaknesses. We all fighting demons, me included. I'm not perfect. I've always been a person that feels like if I can do this, then anybody can do this. But it all started, with my mom telling me when I was young, you're a special kid. And I didn't know if that meant special ed, but I just knew that it meant special. You know what I'm saying?
Funny, I know. I feel you. You. Go ahead.
So with that, I kind of took it for what it was. I always believed that. I've always been a people person. I've always been in situations where I'm working 9 to 5s and doing things I'm not passionate about and didn't really love. It's like people are serious when they say when you do what you love, it's like you never have to work a day in your life. I worked so many other jobs and realized that, between working these other jobs, they just wasn't working out. And I was trying to figure out why. I was just too passionate about what I was thinking about. I have to be a talker. I have to get paid to talk because I'm not good at a whole lot of other things. Mm-hmm. But as you can see, as I get more and more long-winded every time I answer one of your questions, that it just
not
comes
long
out.
With it, brother. You got substance in every word, so that's not long. You know what I'm saying?
It comes out organically, and at some of these jobs, I was told, pull it to the side. Hey, come see me in my office. And I'm like, what's going on? And it's like, you got to get some work done, man. You can't be stopping by everybody's cubicle, brother, and talking about sports. That's just not going to work.
This is a job totally separate from your passion, of course.
That is correct. You can't be doing that. And that happens so many times. At some point, you got to look at, I thought they was tripping, but I had to look myself in the mirror and I said, you know what, why don't I just go after what I'm going after full,
Now, why don't people make that choice though, right there? Why don't people, that moment when you had a realization and you decide to move forward, but so many people, they had a realization, but they stopped. Why, talk about that.
They haven't been through enough yet. They haven't experienced. They
haven't been sick and tired of being sick and tired.
They're not sick and tired of being sick and tired yet. And you will get to that point, but it's up to you to kind of make that decision. And so what it's really about is just developing, establishing relationships with people. This is a relationships business. The same person that that may be working for you, or that you're a colleague with at a station, or just whatever the case may be, who's on an entry level position or just whatever, that might end up being a person that you might have to reach out to a little bit later about a job, to put some money in your pocket and, put some food on the table and a roof over your head, clothes on your back, and so forth. So, that's what it's really about, is just being a people person. At least that's who I am as a person. I'm not saying that's who you have to be, but it's the world, it's the business of communication. We're on Zoom, whether it's a StreamYard, whether it's a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Periscope, Twitch. There's another one I missed, but it's all about communication, and it's all about relationships at the end of the day. So the relationships in this business and in life in general is obviously very, very, very important, because without them, it's not gonna make it very far.
Wow, you're doing a great job. I'm sitting here with DeShaun Tate of Tate's Take. Let's talk a little bit more about your podcast and how you got to that point, and what it means for you when you're able to have guests like your co-host Iron Mike on your show, Mike Dyson, that is a good friend from way back, and other people. But just talk about the podcast and how it came to fruition, and what kind of topics you're dealing with now, so our viewers will know if they don't know already.
Yeah, so let me throw this out there first. You can go and check out the podcast. It's Tate's Take the Podcast, TATESTAKE. And you just hover over that. You just hover over that little search box with that little magnifying glass on it. You put in Tate's Take. You're gonna find some of the best content, or the best content rather, the most informational, the most educational content. We don't do bias. We do 110% nothing but authentic, just content for the people. All basketball, high school level, college basketball, pro basketball, wheelchair basketball, international, whichever way you want to take it. If it's 94 feet long, 50 feet wide, 22 feet and 1 1/3 inches on the perimeter, and the goal is 10 feet tall, you can put basketball anywhere. You can put basketball on the moon, and I'm gonna whip out my astronaut outfit and my globe helmet, because we gonna play. We could take it back to milk crates, back when Dr. James Naismith created this thing in 1891 in Lawrence, Kansas. We taught basketball, and so it's really a platform that I always wanted the people to know the truth. You get so many times when you're listening to the radio and listen to the TV, and people saying stuff for clicks and likes and everything else, and going viral, stuff that they don't even believe. And I never believed in going that way. If I say it, it's because I really believe in it. It's not so that, people can latch on to it and the ratings can go up, because I don't care if I don't ever become rich off of this. I know that I stayed true to myself, and I just want to educate people on that. So we do have a lot of, different guests that come on. I actually brought on a good buddy of mine named TJ Reeves, who's based out of Tampa, Florida. Brought him on Friday. We talked a little bit of Imani Bates, and obviously the other big news from last week with McCurd Maker going to HBCU in Howard. Brought on, Iron Mike Dyson, my boy Iron Mike. He, our podcast, in which is called Transition Points.
Right.
Really just it's. I don't want to call it an extension of Tate's Take exactly, but it's him bringing his brand together with mine. Two light-skinned brothers who got a lot of ability, a lot of mouth, a lot of ego, and not a lot of narcissism,
right,
and just a lot of personality, But we just love basketball, and that's really what it's about. You
gotta be fired up on there.
Yeah, I also brought on. I'm glad we're talking about this being Lansing, Michigan. I brought on Irvin Magic, as a lot of other people know him. Magic Johnson's brother, Larry Johnson.
Larry.
Go
Shout out to Larry. Good dude.
Yeah, great dude. CEO and president of Brotherhood Against Drugs. So he came on and talked a little bit with me. Go and check that out. We got into some of the Magic Johnson documentary and what he hopes to see in it next year. Talked a little bit about what Magic has done, or that some of the rumors that were swirling around about what Magic Johnson has not done for this community. So it's really, really good. I challenge people to go check that out. You can find that anywhere you find your favorite podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Red Circle, whatever, what have you. And of course on YouTube at Tates Take Sports. But I like to think that it's some really, really good content that people can get next to, and it's for us. We're going to talk like us. That's what we do, but we're going to break this thing down. And it's very, anybody have opinions or suggestions, questions, comments, concerns, the whole nine, feel free to drop a note on there when we're going live as well. So the podcast itself, typically every Wednesday and Saturday, 6 p until 7 p, and that's Eastern Standard Time.
It's kind of going full circle what we talked about as we kind of wrap up. You talked about, your journey and the heartache that you experienced that inspired you. But it's like now in this new COVID-19 world, these different platforms are perfect for you because you've had the experience at the CBS branded affiliates or whatnot. But now with these individual platforms, you can just go and grow with your brand. So it's like, is it fair to say the timing couldn't have been better, that now being able to be remote like we are is perfect for you with your platforms and what you're doing based on all the things you kind of went through to get to this point?
Yeah, I like to think so. I mean, in the same token, sometimes I think we tend to get a little bit caught up, and this is kind of going back to what we were talking about before, and just being inspired and motivated and being encouraged, is that a lot of times where we're at in our personal lives, we like to think that we should be somewhere further along than where we are, when I'll be 36 in 30 days, or less. And I never would have thought 10, 20 years ago or growing up as a kid that I would be in this position. But instead that I'll be further along in a lot of cases. But we get caught up in that. And so I just really wanted to use these platforms to be able to put it out there, to be able to give myself a voice, to be able to give other people a voice. And probably the most important thing is to inspire people, to let them know that they do have a voice and that dreams do come true, because we're chasing dreams out here, and I feel like that's ultimately what it's really all about. And you can do that too. I don't care. Maybe I don't have kids, so there's certain things that I don't understand about having kids or a family, but guess what? It's not too late. And I try and let people know that as much as I possibly can, that you can still follow those dreams. You still got those goals and those aspirations. And some people don't know what they want to do. I'm just one person that knows what they've been wanting to do since they were a kid, and just followed it. But everybody doesn't know that. And it takes time, and that's okay. Whatever, take yourself back. I tell people, take yourself back to when you were a kid. Take yourself back to grade school. And that first grade, second grade, whatever teacher say, hey, what do you want to be when you grew up? And you raised your hand. What did you say? As long as you're still above these 6 feet, that's still a doable thing,
right.
So I try to let people know that as much as possible, to hang in there. Sometimes you got to change your circle around multiple times in a lot of cases, but you got to get deep inside yourself. You got to get deep inside your head, and you can't fool yourself. That's just one thing you can't
right.
do. Never be able to do that. You can fool so many other people, but when you lay that head down on that pillow at night, it's just you and the man, So, it's just really about using this platform to be able to give people some inspiration to keep pressing and keep moving forward, because none of us are alone in this thing.
Wow, it's awesome, man. With that, I want us to wrap up, but I just want to say I appreciate you sharing. I appreciate your vulnerability, but also telling your story. And my hope is that anyone who views this can be inspired for whatever they want to do. And the other part of your story is still being written. I mean, you're a great brother, man, with great content, and you're a hard-working brother, and I know it's going to be some great things to happen. So I'm happy to have made your acquaintance. I appreciate our talks, and our we probably talk longer on the phone than we do on this, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So with that, I just give you the last final word, man. If anything else you want to just say as we wrap up, man, but I appreciate you coming on the SPS Mental Health Moment as we get back to this for 2020 going forward. So any last remarks?
No doubt. Just for people to still keep their goals in mind. It's 2020. It's been a lot going on this whole year, and we only halfway through. But who still are holding on to those goals or those resolutions or whatever, what have you. You still here. It's still doable. You know, you can. It's still up to you because nobody is in control of, you know, your destiny except for you. So I appreciate you, Lens, for taking out the time to having me on and just even seeing me in that light that you consider this to be a very valuable piece. Remember to go and check out Tate's Take the podcast and follow along on social media, Twitter, IG or the gram or whatever the cool kids is calling it these days.
Right.
Tate's Take Hoops, TATES TAKEHOOPS. And per usual, that's just where basketball lives.
It is, man. We got DeShaun Tate here. It won't be the last time you guys hear us together talking. I appreciate you, brother, and we're going to see you on the other side of this, all right?
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah.